I could have easily thought, it's rubbish, not doing that anymore. But I thought, no, actually, I like what that brought to me, that experience of setting up that wallet when my brain just went.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to WarriorCast. And today we are graced with Miss Shelle Fantastic. Wow, I already butchered that beginning. Wow, let's hope it's all uphill from here. Hello, Shelle. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay. I'm good, thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I've spoken with you before prior to this, and I just love you, and I love everything that you do. I think we're so aligned in lots of many ways, and so I'm delighted to be here. As star guest in front of your audience, which without the audience, it'd just be me and you, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind if it was just you and I, but it's nice that our audience get a chance to see someone who I would consider a kindred spirit. And we're going to get into why that is, because our audience is familiar with our underlying ethos, the foundations, and why I would consider you a kindred spirit. And we're going to kind of explore, I'm going to say, some of the founding messages of the foundation. Although this is WarriorCast, so we're sort of associated with our foundation. We're outside of the foundation. But you are a healer. You started a healer, and you have an accent. You must be from the Bronx, right? No. Where exactly are you from? The Bronx, yeah.
From Yorkshire in England.
Oh, not the Bronx.
So we are in West Yorkshire, or I am in West Yorkshire, and it's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, so our big brother over in the UK, our favorite nation in the world. So I'm glad that we are speaking to our favorite nation in the world and a great representative. And you had mentioned something before we dive into anything about the northern territory within where you reside. Can you explain just very briefly, and we'll dive into that as a major point, but just dive into what's going on there and what you won't let happen.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So I love London, and that's in the south. I adore London. It's the capital. Who doesn't love London? I do. It's diverse, and it's just exciting, and I absolutely love London. I used to live there. However, let's not forget the north. Because the north is almost like the poor relative. It doesn't get a lot of attention as it absolutely should do, because there are some great human beings in the north. It's a beautiful place of the world, and even if it is cold on most days, so I'm in the north. Obviously, you could argue that I'm biased, but absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, the north is not a backseat driver, and certainly not on my watch.
Or ought not be, and you're going to make sure that's the case.
Oh yeah.
So yes. So fighting for those who are less than representative proper, if you will. So I love that, and our audience loves that. Okay, so there's so many things to get into, but let's just start off with commonalities, because people already know who I am, but I want them to know why we're kindred spirits. So again, I started in life science and as a trainer. How did you get your professional startings? Where did that begin for the first, let's say, 15
years? Okay, so where did I start? So my background is in mental health for the last 24 years. So something that I'm very passionate about, very passionate about. I focus on well-being and behavioural activation and all these things. More recently, 15 years ago, began my journey as an holistic therapist. All these things, guided meditation. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe, that there are many bigger things out there than us, and I believe in always doing the right thing wherever possible.
Yeah, and then there's always the question of what the right thing is, and given that we sort of live in a very consumer-oriented, materialist society, and our last 300 years has been defined by sort of a modernist, material, or even a postmodernist, infinite interpretation and lack of value schema. So it's sort of like that's always sort of it. I always ask that to be qualified. So when you say like to do something good, right? Um, can you just kind of qualify like what would being? And I know it's silly that we would have to do this, but I think we are at the stage where we have to. So what is an example of you doing something good or one doing something good?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's about your moral compass, isn't it? And about what sits well for you, in the gut, way below any other influence, social influence, the need to make money, whatever it is. It's about what sits well with you. That moral compass, that we don't tap into perhaps as much as we should do. It's about my late father, bless him, always told me, treat other people as you would wish to be treated yourself. And for me, if ever I have a quandary where I'm not sure, genuinely not sure what's the right thing to do, I come back and I think, would I like to be treated like that? Is that something that I would like done to me? And I'm guided by that, really. I always go back to those words of wisdom, really, from my late father.
Yeah, I mean that is it. In effect, the golden rule, if you will, right? Something similar. Treat your neighbor as you would have your neighbor treat you. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of consolidated wisdom that is in the old books. A lot which have been forgotten. At least its meaning. And then people get caught up in literal interpretation and conflict, and they create these artificial boundaries. But at the end of the day, a lot of them are getting at the same fundamental ethos, the spirit of it all, which is why I like to sort of de-theologicalize it. That's not a word, but we'll make that a word. And then put it into just plain English, right? Which is just kind of like, okay, do to others what you wish they would, let's say, which they ought to do to you, or which they ought believe they should do to you. So you're not actually going to interact with them, but like you want to hope that that moral compass is sort of grounded in something that is more absolute, that it's not wishy-washy. So when you know what something good is, that the next person has at least a sense that that is within a respectable boundary, that's also good, just so that you both can get together and say, okay, we can discern, because I know it's very important. Tolerant and inclusive, but also discerning is wisdom, right? So it's like we have to at some point say, okay, so this is here we are. Now we are inclusive, right? Now we're tolerant and we're accepting. But then there's outside of this whole other area, right here, and we have to be able to at least agree on that variance, right, of that moral compass that you refer to, and then just be honest with each other and honestly with ourselves and each other, but also just not be fearful of saying, well, this is not good. What do you think on that? Yeah.
Absolutely, no, and it comes down to communication. Talking, communicating. Being honest, being open, transparent. Sharing how you feel. We're never going to get true learning if we don't share how we feel. And sometimes, once we've had those conversations, we might discover that our we've shifted slightly. We've been able to compromise or negotiate or find a middle ground or whatever it is within that that you described there. And it's that coming together, isn't it? That human coming together and that communication from a human point of view, human to human. It's so important in every walk of life.
So I want to focus on what you just said, because you sort of put a human focus on tech, and we haven't even got into the tech. Everyone's waiting for when we're going to get into that. We'll get there, guys. But you do put a human touch behind the tech. I'm gonna kind of say like a matchmaker, move people in the direction of understanding that there is a human behind the technology, and maybe let's say maybe to adjust like an algorithm to be able to speak more to human versus, let's say, pure rationale. Because if we just stick to pure rationale, that can result in some of the worst atrocities in history, as we know. So to remember that there's human and that there's inherent value in humans, implicit, born in us, right? That there is something there that is worth maybe adjusting a purely rational algorithm. You kind of remind maybe the tech community of that in a way. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I'm obviously with the background that I have professionally in healing and everything. And my belief is that tech is great, isn't it? And a lot of it's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing, and it can make some real meaningful, impactful changes to so many people, and people that really need it as well. But let's not forget, that behind that tech, there's a human being, and let's not, get left behind, the human beings, are arguably more important than the tech, because without the human beings behind it,
Oh my God, hopefully we're more important. Hopefully, and we stay that way. Oh, AI of the sky, please let us remain more important. But yes, please. Sorry for that.
you know what I mean? The human beings are so important, and it's about really being able to communicate and going back to communication and communicating in a way that's translatable, that's understandable, that people get, and being able to speak the language of the human beings behind the tech is just as important, if not more so, than being able to speak the language of tech. Is the humans behind the tech. The moral compass that we talked about earlier and everything else, the thing that drives things forward. Because the whole point for me, with tech is that it's supposed to enhance and impact our lives, the lives of human beings across the world in a positive and helpful way. And so we can't let the humans get left behind, if you know what I mean.
Let's not let them get. Okay, so wait, I just want to give people context as we go along because I want to dive continually down this human, but I want to just let people know sort of what you. So you are an advisor to a plethora. I'm not going to even name them all, but we're going to point to the URL below because it's many associations of like emergent tech coming together, and then you kind of adding your voice, which is it's a very human-oriented voice, and also the energy you bring to the table is very unlike. I mean, I recently found out that, well, you told me. Okay, so I just find out that Daniel, like I do, Sloan, who's a brilliant guy and also has a very strong moral compass, and so like that's just is it serendipity or just like well, eventually once you see who's making a difference, it's just kind of a small world, and we know each other. And even if we don't know we know each other, we find out we know each other. So I thought that was quite fun.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. What I love, about tech as much as anything else. And bear in mind that I'm from a non-tech background. I mean, I was completely.
I didn't get into that.
I mean, like seriously. I mean, like 7 years ago, I couldn't even.
Okay. Now we have to dive in. Now we have to dive in. You forced it. You forced it. We're gonna get there. So essentially, Sheila is up until recently ish, and you can give us a story. Like you're NHS, you're a healer, right? You're through therapy or through Reiki, through these two, the Western and let's say the Eastern or a holistic approach. And then suddenly something happened. There was like an event that some people might be aware of. Can you tell us what was this event that may have happened? And then where was Sheila before and then after that event?
Okay, so as a single mom of four, obviously at a certain age, although you'd never guess, but I am actually currently 49 years old. And you know what? I'm proud of that because, it's a, growing older is a privilege denied to many, many, many people. So I'm never a lady that would be ashamed to share her age. So coming from a mental health background, which I was honoured and humbled to serve, and then more latterly as a holistic therapist, I got wind of a thing called cryptocurrency, and I wanted to learn more about it. And I thought, because I'm a good researcher, I thought I'd done all my due diligence, and like you do, and I invested a small amount of money into a company, a project, whatever you want to call it. And subsequently, a number of months later, I lost that money. Now, it wasn't the money, it wasn't the amount of the money that I lost that was the problem. It was more the fact that, I felt so liberated, because I really pushed, myself to even set up a wallet. I didn't even know what the difference was, a hard wallet, a soft wallet, what I was in Google all the time. I'm like, what on earth does this mean? I don't understand it. So I was in Google all the time, everywhere I could be, trying to find out. And you know, I mean, when I set up my first wallet, I think it took me like hours and hours. I fried my own brain. I was like, ooh. So when this platform, you know, went downhill because, you know, it was unsustainable or whatever it was, you know, I don't know. I realised, you know, that actually I really liked, you know, the fact that I'd pushed my brain and I'd really, you know, learned lots of new things, and I liked that. And I thought, you know, it's not, you know, the fault of the technology behind it, you know, the blockchain technology or even crypto. It's, you know, bad actors out there. It's a lack of education on my part. It's, you know.
Well, okay, wait, there's bad actors out there, and even if you have the top education, unless there's consumer protection protocols, unless their financials are on chain, how the heck are you supposed to know if they're over levered? How? Right? How? Unless you have access to their data vault, unless you're an executive who looks at their financials. I'm sorry, how? You can't, right? So the issue is a systemic issue, but that we'll dive into. So, okay, but the beautiful thing is, so when COVID hit and we were all sort of rattled a bit and maybe isolating in our homes, you decided to take lemons, a chuck full of lemons, or perhaps what's larger than a chuck full? I don't even know what a chuck is.
Just one.
A bunch of lemons. Turn it into lemonade.
Lemon.
One lemon.
Just one lemon.
One lemon. Okay.
So
you know,
go through the process.
Fact and not number. Yeah. So, you know, on the back of, you know, what I just shared with you there, I decided that, you know, there was a pain point. I needed to educate myself. I was fascinated. I wanted to learn more about it, and I liked the way that it made me feel. You know, I felt empowered and liberated, and I felt, you know, like my brain had suddenly come alive, and I loved it, and I wanted to keep learning. And I thought, you know, obstacles to me were just challenges. They weren't, you know, no entry. They were, you know, well, you know what, I'll find a way underneath it, over it, round the side of it, or I'll find a way to smash straight through it. But I'm going to learn, and I'm not going to stop. And so I started working for a blockchain training academy for about a year.
After having no tech experience, this event happens, and now you're boom, right smack. Okay, so go ahead.
Yep, I educated myself, and really my job there wasn't, you know, around the tech as much. It was more around human behavior, and you know, and because I've always, you know, obviously my background is in that. And you know, I was doing that for about a year, and I thought, you know what, I could do this myself. So I've always been a bit stubborn.
No, I love it. I love it.
You know what? I thought I can do it myself. Why can't I? You know, and I, you know, I set up, you know, some social media pages, you know, for women's empowerment, because, you know, I recognised with COVID that there was a real problem with women, business women in general, really, that were having to pivot and all these things. And, you know, I wanted people to have a voice. I didn't want them to sit in the shadows, you know. So I did that, and then I was approached by two wonderful human beings who offered me a partnership. And I thought, yeah, you know, a partnership, you know, to educate people and to raise awareness and to, you know, minimize risks and as much as possible, so that other people like me didn't maybe get into the same, you know, issue that I described earlier. And at the end of the call, these two wonderful human beings said, right, this is great, you know, we'll send over the documentation, the legal paperwork, but we need, you know, a website, and we need your incorporation number, da da da. And I thought, oh heck, I said yes, of course, at the time, because I thought, you know, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. This is an opportunity.
Oh yeah, you say yes. You say yes. Yes, exactly.
Like, yes, no problem. I'll have it for you by Monday. This was like, I don't know, Friday. I'm like, oh my God. And I came off. Anyway, I studied, I Googled, I set up my own website from a lounge here in the middle of COVID in the pandemic. I used, you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I used Wix. You know,
which is, for everyone who doesn't know, that's a very consumer-friendly way. For those who don't know, that's a very super consumer-friendly way to launch a site. Like, it's just kind of like drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop. And but yeah, anyway, yeah, go ahead. So that was the beginning, which is fascinating. Yeah.
And it was 1:30 in the morning, I was in the bed at this point, and I thought, and I just thought, I can't pass this up. This is an opportunity, and I incorporated SheFAN Pro at 1:30 in the morning in my bed. I thought, you know what? And I was terrified. I thought, you know what? Go. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Go for it. You're coming from a good place. Just go for it, and that's what I did.
Yes. Yeah, you ventured into, so we have these things that animate us. So my background is behavioral neuroscience. Yours is, again, like behavior and mental health. So again, we have a lot of alignment and understanding. So, the obstacle is the way, right? So in the path, there's a story of the king who brought his two sons to educate him on the way of the world. And he did that by placing a boulder on the path that would go to the kingdom, right? Out to the agrarian area to the kingdom. And then so there's three groups of people who pass. The first are the elites, and they anger and they curse the name of the king. How dare he let this boulder in the way? And then there were the monks, and they prayed to God to say thank you for this opportunity whereby we can walk around, and some justification that they came up with that was a little silly because there was the boulder, and people do need to pass sometimes, and they got a carriage and a thing, and you need the road, right? Okay, so then comes the man, the laborer, who was maybe from the north, if you will, or from in America off the coasts, and he's exhausted from his day having tending to the fields, and then he sees the boulder, and then he's no energy, but whenever he moves over to the side, and under the boulder was a treasure trove, if you will, a treasure chest of gold, which he brought back to his. This is not part of the story, but he brought back. He became sovereign, his family, his community, and the 5 concentric circles, which we say, the territory and the world over time. Like, he was able to, by his voluntary efforts, seeing the obstacle as the way, and then in him assuming that responsibility and moving it for others, the ones who would have to pass that path, he was rewarded. But there's no promise of the reward. It was just he was doing right action because it was good, as you said. That's why he would do it, because it's good, right? And so, and like that's what you're doing. And you're doing it for, and we're going to get into it, but so women in Bangladesh, young women, so you have a partnership, and I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to have you sort of talk about it. And it's like, so you chose Bangladesh for a specific reason, which is not, it was just because that was more organic to you. But tell me, why, in your mind, do you want to do what you're doing in Bangladesh right now? And explain the program a little bit. And if you want to let someone know, maybe go here or there to check it out, great time to do it.
Yeah, sure thing. So, one of our first partners, the ones that I just described earlier, were from Bangladesh, Neela from Women in Digital and Lumina Dev. And, she's a wonderful human being, and we've spoke online for, every week pretty much for the last, 2+ years. And we actually met in London recently. She travelled over, and it was so amazing to meet with her. And, she's trained, thousands of young girls and young women to code and become developers. She's trained them thousands. She's done some really impactful work that's changed the lives of many women there. And, so I really wanted to help support that really through SheFAN Pro. And, so we've got some roadmaps for 2023, which will involve, sponsoring, women over there to become trained so that they can, gain jobs, meaningful jobs, that will help feed the families, will help empower them. We're also going to look at the recruiting side as well once they are qualified. Through our partners, we're going to look at trying to recruit them and support them. And and it's important. It's important because as much as I can complain about standard of living over here sometimes at the UK, obviously we know that we're in a market downturn, and there's an economic crisis and all these things. But yeah, these women are just remarkable. The work ethic and everything. They're just beautiful human beings, and if I can help support that, the SheFAN Pro community can help support that.
Okay, so you're the CEO of SheFAN Pro. Just to be clear, you're the CEO, and you developed this back when you just decided, I'm going to go from being a healer into tech, and then just ended up in the middle of all, like, the Blockchain Association advisor and so on. Did I say that right? The Blockchain Council. Sorry, right? I'm saying that right? Yeah. I am. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what you've done with, I think SheFAB is the initiative, right? That's the joint venture.
Yeah, that's a joint enterprise. Yeah, joint venture. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So what you've done is essentially, and I like that we're focusing. I mean, it could be on Bangladesh, we could talk about India, we can talk about other territories. But you're focusing on an area where, quite frankly, these young girls simply would not have had the opportunity. Okay. So you're creating optionality for them, and in that optionality, if they voluntarily pursue it, they now become sovereign agents. And a sovereign agent, without having sovereignty, there's no freedom. And it's funny, you and I discussed what our archaeological signs are, or am I saying that right? Astronomical?
Horoscope.
The horoscope. That's better. That's better. So we don't have to remember the different. I like that. Okay. So horoscopes, and then I had said that I was a Taurus with a bull, and then you said that we tend to be softies on the inside. I'm like, yes, the meek, right? The sword sharpened in the sheath, only to take it out when it's most necessary for the good. And yourself was
Libra.
which is
Scales of justice.
aha, yes, yes. So and then we kind of got into like, can there really be freedom without justice, right? Can there be true freedom without justice, right? And so by true, I just mean accurate. It's a archery term. So is sin, by the way, which is funny, right? Maintain your arm true, oriented, truthfully. Like, may my aim be true. It's towards the target, and then may not be sinful. I mean, I know these were adopted into theological worldviews, but it would be off the aim, off the target, right? And so, like, you are essentially creating a means whereby people can voluntarily pursue individual sovereignty and then express the best version of themselves. And then in so doing, it's not only they who benefit, but it's their family. We call it the 5 concentric circles. I think you talked about legacy and world. It's like the self, the family, the community, the territory, the world over time, legacy, right? To change the world. And it really only takes, and you would know this, a few people aligned with doing good as we've defined it, right? Good, to really move that needle.
Yeah. Do you know what? For me, it's about leveling up. It's about leveling up. And, as far as I'm concerned, as long as you're, a good, decent human being, everybody gets a seat around SheFan Plus table and will eat, absolutely, full stop, end of. And, for me, the smallest movement is the most powerful, and it's never to be underestimated. If you look at, where I live here in Yorkshire, there's beautiful countryside, and there's amazing, like up on the hills, there's an amazing natural waterfall. And it just cascades into this torrent of wild, beautiful, powerful water, and it's just gorgeous. But when you look at it, that started from one raindrop at the top of that mountain that gathered, and before you know it, it carved its way through stone and cascaded at the bottom into this beautiful white water, rapid, stunning.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love your explanation of that. Yeah.
And this is it. It doesn't take, the majority. Quite often the minority have got more power than you'd ever realise.
Oh, sure.
Because that raindrop was the minority.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's the minority. I feel like there's parameters. It's a minority it's a minority of good agents who share first principles, and which is very important. The share the fundamental axioms. It doesn't have to be the specific technicality. It's the foundational the substrate, if you will, of the chain. If we're going to get technical and get the techies hot on this. If they believe in the foundational principles, so let's say the blockchain, right? The ethos would be decentralization and democratization, right, of these systems, transparency, etc. Like, this is what changes the world. It's a handful of, perhaps you call them, I'm not going to call them revolutionaries. I'm going to call them just rebels. I'll call them rebels, right? Right. A handful of rebels willing to do perhaps what others won't. And in doing so, they become what others can't. Not to say because they're unable, because they were willing to do something, let's say, different in kind from what's been done. And usually that's greeted in the beginning. No good deed goes unpunished. Usually it's treated with, let's say, not the proper fanfare. But over time, as long as you stick to your personal intent, which is all you can control, you really can't control your reputation as much as you might want to.
Yeah.
but your integrity, you can. Over time, people see that consistency, and that overrides any reputational damage through cancel culture or whatever that this big term is now, and you can overcome it. And you're an example of someone who went from not being involved in tech to being like influential in tech. Not only that, but actually its application in a territory that will have now that single drop, and then throughout the concentric circles. I mean, that's just, you are that raindrop right now, this initiative that you're doing. And so maybe you want to just draw people's attention to where they can go take a look at it, of putting that raindrop to carve out that area, and this, again, beautiful waterfall falling into the storm.
Yeah.
And that's,
for me, it's about, SheFAN Pro is built and sustained on relationships. And that's the basic business model, really, I suppose, and it's not rocket science. It's the things, it's the values that my parents, my late parents instilled in me from being a little girl. It's the things that I hold in my heart, the relationship, the taking care of each other, the supporting each other, not being scared of each other. We need some competition, it keeps us on our toes and makes us get out of the bed in the morning when maybe we want to stay in a little bit longer. But, it's about, not being too precious about things, and actually, there's immense power in coming together and sharing capabilities and sharing resource and knowledge and really supporting each other. That's when, that raindrop turns into the waterfall.
Yes, and it's especially when there's not a fight over absolute ownership. It's the game theory of iteration over time. So if you do this, you identify the bad actors. I mean, double default, the basic rules of game theory, and it comes to cooperative action. So it's kind of like, you don't go forward if you started with a default. Okay, fine. If you started with a good, then you always match it. The default once, you do the forgive, the default again, 2 in a row, that's and stop game, right? Okay, for example. But the idea is that you have to be willing to, quote, fail. And by me saying fail, I mean just be disappointed. But to keep it in perspective, saying that's part of the process. And then after so many iterations, now you have this group that can change the world.
Yeah.
But if you use that initial failure or betrayal as a reason to stop, oh my goodness, you haven't even started down the path yet, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I first lost that money, 7 years ago, whatever, I could have easily thought, it's rubbish, not doing that anymore, and kind of thrown the dummy out the cot, so to speak. But I thought, no, actually, I like what that brought to me, that experience of setting up that wallet when my brain just went like that, and it's only because I'm so stubborn that I continued with it until I'd done it, because there were many, many times I could have just put that down. So I thought, I don't understand the language. I don't know all these technical terms, I just don't understand it. I couldn't even copy and paste, remember. So when I'd achieved that, I felt pumped, I felt charged, I felt good.
Yeah.
Good. I felt like I could have moved the world, you know what I mean? It did a lot for me.
You're built like that, yeah.
And on that basis, I got the appetite to learn more, and I thought, right, I need to learn more, and I educated myself, and by no means do I class myself as an expert, because I'm not.
But an expert enough to be brought in as an advisor to one of the most prestigious councils, so maybe not downplay. Oh, okay, I suppose, yeah. Okay, keep on going, please. Humility is a virtue. I like it. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. I'm just a regular woman that's always worked hard and raised her 4 children the best way that she can. I've juggled childcare, I've juggled shifts, I've spent my life looking after others, and I've always had an unquenchable thirst to do better, to be better, and to help others. Not just to run off into the sunset by myself, but to open the gate for others to run through as well, because it's really important to me, really important.
It makes you feel good, I mean, as well, carving the path for others. And I realized that going in my former life was life science. Yours is, of course, well, you're still doing it, but Reiki and with the NHS, mental health. So what what happened was when I first got my goings after I was a trainer, did a bunch of things. But then, okay, I was business development. You're kind of just doing sales, and then it was like director of this. I'm like, okay, it's cool. Now it's international. You're doing product. Okay, but then it was like I became the leader and then chair. And then when that happened, there was something that shifted in me, and it was like, yeah, I was making a little bit more money or a lot more money, but like that really wasn't it actually, because my expenses proportionally, just having to tag along. So it didn't really matter as much, right? It's just, a dumb kid, not knowing any better, but it is what it is. That's why we need mentors. And we can talk about that perhaps later, about how you would make a fantastic mentor. Perhaps SheFan Pro has a mentorship program in the future or even now. So it was at that point when it wasn't like, okay, how's my quarterly going to commission me, right? Or, distribution or whatever based on my shareholders, right? How am I going to, make some money off it? It was like, wow, I have 200, 250, depending on the time, families that depend on me. I better get my tush off the couch. And also at the same time, because I was like you, like really into like, doing the research and perhaps maybe being a perfectionist. I don't know if you fall into that hole, but like just being very hyper industrious, right? Hyper industrious. It was like, I also was like killing myself at times, like too many hours. So I realized that I needed the mental health part, which you, right? And so that balance had to be there. So one of our aims of our brother foundation, which is Citizen Warrior, is to identify mentors and to identify leaders in emergent tech. And the idea is that we live in a den of thieves. This is what I readily admit, as this being my industry, and filled with a bunch of crud that is being scraped out right now through the FTX spread. It's contagion. And we're working with local DAs right now because we need to make an example out of a few people. And right now, if anyone's following, and I'm sure you have, the Celsius bankruptcy case, they're about to rule today or tomorrow on if the assets deposited are that of the depositors or Celsius. What an insane just proposition, let alone the fact that it's contentious. Like, come on. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. People are going to be like, yeah, here's my stuff. Took me forever to build. It's yours now. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Like that would ever happen. That's what we call the basic B argument. No, that's not how the life works, bro. But that's how the court is arguing. So we see all this injustice. Okay. We talk about justice, and we see the people not being represented. Time to represent them. And we want to make an example out of them. So what can SheFan Pro do to provide mentors or program, right? So like, I guess like an instructional program or a program of accreditation, or through your affiliations with like the Blockchain Council, who does like a accreditation, certification, educational type of things to kind of position you upward within the emergent tech. I think maybe specific to blockchain and smart contract, Web3, but maybe beyond that space. I'm not as educated as I should be on it. But what can SheFan Pro specifically do so that perhaps Citizen Warrior Foundation and SheFan can team up to provide mentors and teach them that moral compass, perhaps, within emergent tech?
So, yeah, absolutely. So, I provide consultations, mentoring, coaching. I do a lot as well around not only, by exemplifying my own journey within building, what is now a registered trademark company after 9 months of incorporating, thank you, with 65 partners spanning over 22 countries, with access to over 40,000 devs, with certified education, with marketing teams, with...
Yeah, guys, very legit, very, very, very legit. From no tech experience to super legit and super admirable. I just want to just get it out there, all right? Just in case people have to like do their own due diligence. Due diligence done. Anyway, please, yes.
Thank you. No. I'm here to invite people to that table, and to come and dine with me, and because you deserve a seat at that table. And I'm here to also show that you can do it. I have so many women particularly that will come to me and say, oh, I'm too old, I can't learn that now, or
I can't
I
stand
say,
that.
it's still got a heartbeat. Look at me, I'm 49 now. I'm 49, you know what, it's a privilege denied to many.
49 years young, 49 years young. Look at you, you're killing it, please. What the heck is 49 mean
49.
at this point?
Exactly. Single mom to 4, from a health background.
Good job on that, by the way. Good job. Look at you doubling the rate there. Yeah, very nice. Well done.
Yeah. So I'm here to show others that, you can do it, actually, because if I can do it, believe me, you can do it. So in that, I do a lot of coaching and mentoring programs, personally, directly, whether it's around confidence building, whether it's about your mindset, whether it's about managing imposter syndrome, whether it's about, how do I do it? How do I get going? Because we never had, investors or a huge budget. I never threw a load of money. I literally did it with one lemon. When you talked about a cartload of lemon and making champagne, I did it with one lemon. In fact, probably even the lemon skin, I don't even know a pip. But it can be done. It can be done, and obviously we built and sustained on relationships and connections and the human, behind the tech, really. And we try our best to help support all our partners, with options for scale up or resource sharing capabilities, whatever it is. We do initiatives for social impact for women. And yeah, we're here, to provide the A to Z within the space, through introductions and sharing, that resource, really, because I do believe that, it's when we're together, that's when we grow.
Yeah, so maybe a point of differentiation between SheFAN Pro and System Warrior Foundation is that we do it for, we don't even look at the sex, but we do look at the territory, right? We look at the territory. So if I see a territory where I see an asymmetrical advantage relative to, let's say, the expression of governance, we would put it that way, right? Then yeah, absolutely, I'm like focused on that. And if it's not that, I just see emergent tech and its ability to mitigate meaningless suffering, and I think it's there. And I do, but at the same time, right? To give credit where credit's due, there's asymmetries in territories that are vast, and it doesn't allow for autonomy to express itself in such a way that can impact the world. And that's why I'm very bullish on what you're doing in Bangladesh. That's why, I'm all with you on that, because I agree with you. That's an area specifically that would really mitigate suffering and provide justice, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. It would empower people to have a seat at the table, so to speak. Why shouldn't they? And I'm tired of inequality, and I'm tired of people being made to take a back seat. We've all got the right to be driving as such, and whether that's through lack of opportunity or whatever it is, at the end of the day, I'm here.
Can I interrupt you on that, because you're an example of this. So I just have to jump in on that, because you raised 4 children. Okay, so you, right, 4 children, and so that you doubled, the average, if you will, in the Western world, reproduction rate. I don't know what you want to call it. It just sounds like so cold or whatever. But you have made many beautiful babies, okay, who are now young adults. Okay, so but I just want to focus on that for a second. So and as much as you're comfortable on, right? But essentially, you're working full time, you're working your butt off, you're helping other people. Now you got these kids, and you have a daughter now who I think is 15. Maybe you can share whatever it is you want to about bringing her up as a full-time employee, right? And maybe what she's up to today.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's learning to code, number one.
Learning to code. Are you doing that for the hashtag? Hashtag learn to code. Okay, got it.
It's true. And actually, when she was, I think she was about 11, and they did the teacher at her high school did a lesson on blockchain technology and all these things. And my daughter Hallie just knew all the answers. The teacher found herself back in Google. She was like, "Oh, let me just check that, Hallie." And she's like, "Yeah, Hallie, you're right, and you know all this." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, you've been listening
My mom.
to Mama." But you know, she's an actress. She's modeling. She's a straight A student. She's fluent in Spanish now. She's just an amazing, spirited young lady that I'm very, very proud of. As I am equally all the other three children as well. You know, they're all.
And she has a gig on a major streaming. She has a gig on a major streaming platform as well.
She did do, yeah, a couple of years ago. She featured on Netflix. Yeah, she did.
Yeah. So I mean, but the idea is that, again, you didn't have everyone being like, "Let me support all of your endeavors, Sheila. Let me just make life easy for you. Let me go ahead and just let me just give you this and that and this and that and make your life easy for you." And that's why now, demonstrably, I mean, all four of your kids are great, I'm sure, but we're focusing just right. So did it happen by magic? Was it magic?
It was hard work. It was belief. I did a lot of it because when my older daughter, she's 24 now, my mum died, so I was quite young when I was pregnant with my eldest daughter. She's 24 now, and you know, I thought, you know, she can't carry that torch anymore because, you know, God has taken her, but I sure as hell can. And I picked up that torch and I ran with it, and I wasn't sure which way I was going to run. I just needed to do something good for myself and for other human beings, and yeah, you know, I did it in her memory. So yeah, no, we've not had it easy. You know, we're here on our own. We've got no family here. My father just passed 4 years ago as well.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So yeah, sorry, I know. So you know, I've done it really, you know, because I always knew that there was something better out there, and I never believed that we had to settle for what it was or how things were. That actually, you know, we can do it, and you know, we've got to at least try to be that raindrop and keep dropping, really, because eventually, you know, surely it's, you know, law of averages will tell you that it's going to carve something out, you know.
So I just want to kind of close on this because okay, you are highly industrious. You're also highly intellectually curious. You also obviously are extroverted. So if I were to, so I mean, again, my background in behavioral neuroscience, like I'd be lying if I say I don't do a little profiling when I first meet people, and that's what I said, we're kindred spirits, because we actually are on a personality chart. We line up uh, almost. I mean, even the lateral thinking across separate domains. I mean, it's almost uncanny. But so I'm going to assert that perhaps your temperament and behavioral propensity may not come natural given the variance on the social environment where people are reared. And so, yes, the human spirit is capable of amazing things, but what came to you without a mentor, without support, may not come as easily to others without a mentor and without support. So, as we're all equal under God and under the law, as we ought to be under the law, um, when it comes to doing what you've done within the last 3 years, which is, quite frankly, like, maybe there should be a Netflix story on that. So, Netflix, if you're listening, you know, time to green light it, yo. All right, so it's just so you took a COVID lockdowns, you learned all these things during that time, and now here you are, and you have the ability now to have that concentric positive affect, right? And by spreading, the ability to be sovereign. So I want to again focus on SheFAN Pro. This is your baby that you had started during that time. You are a connector, you are a mentor, you are a healer, and what you were able to do, I assert, others may need some guidance on. And so, SheFAN Pro, guidance if it's needed. And trust me, we all need guidance. Also, education. You had mentioned the Blockchain Council with whom you advise, right? So, and this is one of the more prestigious associations out there. So people, I mean, everyone knows that kind of, I guess, if they're in tech, but this is more broad now. So some people don't. And it would be, I would like to see numbers. I want to see per territory sort of who's getting educated on Web3 and who's not. because there's something that bothers me, and tell me what you think of this, Shelle, because it's the same, whatever, you're our big brother, right? And then we're now like smaller, right? UK, and so, we're kind of connected, yeah. Okay, I mean, like, we're definitely connected, obviously. So anyway, the point is that, like, our universities, right? Well, Oxford may be a little bit different, and Warren, I think they all have like one program relative to this, and I think maybe MIT had one program too. Yeah, that Gensler taught. Remember, Gensler taught that Bitcoin blockchain program. Oh, that's crazy. All right, but they're not educating the tech generation of tomorrow to do anything relative to emergent tech. What is Okay, we'll finish on that then, because that is just more like absurdity to me. And why I'm like, maybe let's talk to the blockchain council and get them to blockchainify accreditation, academia, to get their act together. What's the deal with that? Is that like they don't want us to succeed? They don't want us to make money? They don't want like alums like giving them a bunch of money in the back? It's like, dude, what's going on there?
I think sometimes it comes down to fear, fear of I always think there's a difference between leadership versus micromanagement. And I'm a member of the leadership institution as well. And, I think sometimes, ridiculous behavior is often born out of fear. A fear of losing that control, number one. Number two, I think it's still early days. It's still early days, isn't it? In the scheme of things, it doesn't feel like tremendously early days for me because I'm deep in it. But I still have many people that I can, maybe try and share what it is that I do, and they just don't get it. I think I'm a big believer. I think, studying child psychology historically and adult psychology as well, that, we should be doing this from teeny weeny little kids, in, I don't know, primary, first school, whatever you want to call it, from whatever you call it, the young,
Kindergarten. What was it, the German word? Yeah. Kindergarten. Whatever. It's a kind of a freaky term, but yeah, it's like primary school. Yeah, why not? Exactly. Well, that's my question, though. Why not? Like, I really actually, like, it's not more than rhetorical. Like, again, they're fearful, right? What are they fearful of? Like, I don't want to get conspiratorial, but it's like, dude, look at India. They got Web3 throughout their public institutions, and like their government isn't particularly bullish on crypto, right? So, okay, how is that the case? And then we have the land of the free, and then the builder, literally, of common law, where the Enlightenment kind of consolidated and came together for the most part. It's like, what's going on with our? So I think that because Citizen Warrior Foundation wants to mitigate meaningless suffering through emergent tech, and SheFAN Pro mentors and your affiliation with all these associations that have cred and they have influence, as they ought, because of what they've produced. Because look at their deeds, not their words, look at their deeds. And so, good, we're well positioned. Maybe we ought to encourage universities within our home, maybe in the north, starting in the UK, just to give them a little hedge on London. Although London's doing quite well.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're working on that. Myself and a few others that we're partnered with are working on that right now, because we recognise the importance of education and raising awareness and that freedom of choice. That you can only choose
freedom. I love it. Yes,
from the table. Yes. But you need to really, you need to have everything on the table so that people have that freedom of choice, that liberty, that empowerment to make those informed decisions and choices for themselves moving forward. And I think, that needs to be done from a very young age. It needs to be something that, kids grow up with, like they grow up learning, I don't know, maths or science or all the other really, really important topics in curriculum that kids need to learn that are very important. But I think there needs to be, it needs to be there. It needs to be present. So people can go ahead and and the way that the technology is going, it's going to be part of our day-to-day lives anyway. It's creeping in, and that's not a bad thing, but should we be teaching people about it? Should we be looking at fundamental early years?
We have a moral obligation to to prepare them for the world to come. And we have not been proper stewards of that as a people, right? Within the West, at least. I know that India, again, I mean, they're ahead on us all. And some of the best engineers, I speak to them all. I mean, like, I'm not like saying we should compete with India. It's like I'm recruiting from India. Like, those are some of my boys, right? And they know some of the surrounding areas because they're pumping out talented engineers. So I'm like, but at the same time, it's like I love my country. I'm not always a fan of what my government always does, although we do want to work with our government always. And I've done a lot of work with our government, but I want to do more work with them. So check out the site Blockchain USAID. You might get a kick out of that. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. But yeah, first, entertain the DoD before you entertain USAID. But the long story short is that there is an idea, and let's just be frank, because we all WarriorCast is I mean, it's slogan, right? Seeking the truth in the world, seeing when we got mad. It's like, okay, well, we know reasonable actions, right? So if there is a new frontier, we ought prepare our youth, at least, if not everyone, in order to pursue that frontier. And it seems, I mean, so we know empirically there's been a dumbing down. There's been a dumbing down. And it could be lack of quality control, or it could be some conspiracy and blah, blah, blah. But you know, so everyone, they have their own ideas of how that's happened, right? But like the point is that like we as free agents, speaking you and me, or Citizen War Foundation and SheFAN Pro, right, and our associations and our partners, because we're partners with some formidable. We are that they've built nation states like that. You know, people who built smart cities and like who are reshaping standards relative to the future of emerging tech and how it's expressed. So it's like perhaps it is time to take a stand, put a staff in the ground, say, okay, this is where we are, this is where we need to be. And as you said earlier, I wish some people saw that. It's like you go around it, you go under it, you go over it, or you go through it. And that's the last option, but if necessary. So this is something that needs to be done for the people that are our neighbors. And this is something that perhaps I'll bring you on in several months following the ruling on Celsius, which by today, please watch, because it's a watershed moment. It's a watershed moment in crypto in our space. I don't need to tell you, you already know, but and depending on that, we're going to be bringing on partners who say, listen, now there's a void. Because what happened, right? All of CeFi got wiped. Most of the exchanges got wiped. DeFi is very vulnerable because of post-quantum hacking. I mean, it's just how it is. A nation state can breach any type of, you know, I don't care what your security is. I mean, it's a Shangri-La is a 2x of the existing encryption code, while there's like 3 orders of magnitude greater by the level of the nation state. It's just cost prohibitory for the retailer or maybe some institutions. But when you got enough capital, you get that quantum action, right? So it's like, yeah, these things exist and they're vulnerable, and we're seeing meaningless suffering at scale because of these villains happening right now. And honestly, like, it's better go the right way in court, or else the responsible parties will be named and all these things. The thing is that we can reset suggested opt-in standards. Right? So we can create an ISO. How do you launch a DAO, right? An ISO, right? You know what I mean. It's the decentralized standardizing organization with a central, auditor type thing. The TUV. It's like the Americans don't really know. So we have the US FDA, which is highly centralized, and there's a revolving door between the industry I used to be in and them and the regulators, this and that. And then, the ISO is a set of standards, and you comply or not, but this is opt-in. It wouldn't be mandated, right? So that it stays aligned with the blockchain ethos, nothing by fiat. But someone's got to, there's a vacuum. And we, by combining resources, relationships, and intelligence, human, intellectual, and financial capital, can come together and chart a course forward, public, transparent. That said, remember before I said about like the moral thing, like the foundational axioms must be shared. We can set that forward. We can be those drops who can do that. And if not us, we can inspire others who are better than us to do it. And then either way, what's the result? The result is mitigation of meaningless suffering. So that's why I love what you do. You see the human behind the technology. That's why I was so excited to bring you on.
Thank you. And I think, I think we're far more powerful than we realize we are. It's just about, speaking that language. It's about the ability to tap into, you know, to the thing that's kept you going all these years and through all the adversity, you know, like you know, the thing that, you know, determines whether you're a phoenix that rises from the ashes. And, you know, that adversity is necessary at times, you know, to you know, my mum used to say, bless her, she used to say, what doesn't break you'll make you stronger. And, you know, you come out of it, you know, like that phoenix. And, yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I'm trying to enable other people to do as well. That, you know, you can do it if you want to. And, you know, there are ways, you know, through introductions and through, you know, meeting new people and sharing capabilities that, you know, the world's our oysters. You know, we're alive. We've got a heartbeat. You know, and it's never too late.
For people like you, though, with a good spirit, I just want to be clear, everybody who's listening. If you have, I would say, a good soul, but if not your intent, but your deeds demonstrate that your intent is aligned with the outcome of the activities as expressed by the deeds, right? It's like if you orient yourself upward on the, I don't know if you want to call it the righteous path, it might sound theological, but on the right path to mitigate suffering, starting with the scarcity of themselves. You have to be sovereign, right? With what you're doing with the young girls in Bangladesh, you have to in order to. So it's this, all this opportunity that she was speaking of. The prerequisite is that you orient yourself in the proper direction. You have to orient yourself, and that's an intent. You have to intend to do it. You have to say, I intend, I voluntarily intend to be properly oriented. And then once you're there, then yes, it's all possible. It's all possible. And flushing out the bad actors, I think, may be something that we potentially engage going forward, because we need to preserve this space. And we need to, given what just happened, make sure this does not happen again. But I love what you're, yes.
If you set your intention, you know, and it's coming from a good place, you know, in here.
Has to come from a good place. Yeah.
Raindrop, you know, that raindrop will carve out, you know, that the intention of maybe creating a waterfall, for example, you know, like I was speaking about earlier for anybody that's listening. You know, and naturally, as a natural sort of organic path, you know, the debris, if you want to call it that, you know, the bad actors, the debris, will get swept along in that current and will be washed away. You know.
Yeah, the burning of the dead wood.
Yeah, I believe in simplifying complexity. You know, as
yes,
we're hell bent, aren't we, in finding, you know, equally complex solutions for what we feel is a complex problem. And actually, you know, the secret and the answers often lie in the simplicity. And you know, but yeah, as human beings, we feel compelled to find, you know, complex solutions. And actually, you know, the magic lies in the simplicity. And you know, and I believe with the good intentions, if you're going in the right direction, and like you said, orientate yourself, only good can come from that.
Yes, and your time horizon is important as well, right? The time horizon is important. Just have a system and keep at it. Have faith in yourself, right? And I think that's what you're going to be giving to girls around the world, starting with Bangladesh. I'm sure it will spread. Who perhaps maybe didn't have that staff in the ground, which we referred to earlier, and you're giving, and to that, I know you will do well, and not only well, but I hope you do so publicly, so that it can inspire others to do the same. And it was just such a blessing, I think, that we were introduced. I'll have to thank Miss Fatima for finding you for me.
Yeah.
But we're kindred spirits, and this will not be the last time that we speak.
Absolutely, better not be.
Oh my goodness! Oh.
I think you're amazing. I love you to bits. You know, I'd like to thank all our partners at SheFAN Pro and everybody that's involved, because without you, we'd just be me, and we wouldn't be SheFAN Pro. And you know, just thank you to everybody that's helped us and everybody that supported us. you know, they say the mark of true leadership is to surround yourself with people that can do the job much better than you can. And, you know, without all that expertise, including, you know, Daniel Sloan that you mentioned earlier from Future Tech and the Blockchain Council, the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce, Linda Getz, and all these amazing people, Raj Kapoor, Dr. Sindhu, I love them all. And without them, you know, I'd just be very lonely sat by myself, wouldn't I?
I think that sign off of gratitude again exemplifies the virtues with which we want to mentor and point people in the direction of, and this is how you ought aspire. And so thank you so much for joining and sharing your stories, and this won't be the last time.
Never.